to the Blue Light Special. The American Trial Lawyers Association was having its annual convention in Washington, D.C. And since Fred had a national office, we planned to attend. I was excited. Fred and I met while we were both working in the nation's capital, and I had not been back since our marriage. About 2 weeks before we left for our trip, Fred came home and handed me a big white envelope. I gasped as I read the return address. It was from Barbara Bush, at that time wife of the Vice President of the United States. Quickly I tore it open. Inside was an elegantly written invitation to a get-together, quote marks, luncheon being held by Mrs. Bush during the convention. Upon careful scrutiny, I noticed the words, "Please wear a hat to this function." I panicked. The only hat I possessed at the time was a ski hat. I didn't own a hat that would be appropriate. I had already decided to wear my newly purchased black and white linen dress, but I needed a hat. The only thing for me to do was go hat shopping. The next day I got an early start making the rounds of the dress shops in Idaho Falls. I got home that evening exhausted and empty-handed. There wasn't a store in Idaho Falls that had dress hats. They just weren't in style in this part of the world. Now I am really getting worried. When I expressed my concern to Fred, he wasn't in the least helpful. He said, "Well, just don't go then. After all, she's a Republican, you know." But I wouldn't be outdone by a hat. And besides, I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to meet the Vice President's wife. A couple of days later, I was in Kmart, picking up a few things, and I heard a voice on the loudspeaker say, "Blue Light Special in the garden section." I was always curious to see what great bargains were available during the Blue Light Specials. I pushed the shopping cart to where the crowd was gathered. I saw it immediately, laying among the flower pots and the garden hose, a plain, shiny, straw black hat. I grabbed it and looked at the price tag, $2. I might as well get it and see if I could somehow make it work. I paid the $2 and took it home with me. The next morning I called my sister-in-law, the creative one, and told her my problem. She told me to bring it over and then we would work on it. After going through her collection of ribbons and fake flowers, we decided on a strip of black crepe ribbon to tie around the crown and some lovely lavender flowers. We took her glue gun and trimmed the hat. It didn't look half bad. The plane trip to Washington was uneventful, although it was rather uncomfortable hand carrying the hat all the way. It would have crushed if I had packed it in my suitcase. Washington was beautiful that year. The city was dressed in flowers and good weather. We stayed in a lovely hotel and enjoyed every minute of it. Time came for the much anticipated luncheon. I dressed carefully and donned the hat. I arrived at the luncheon to find that there were only about 30 of us attending. Mrs. Bush was greeting everybody at the door, and as I waited in line, I was struck by how gracious this lady was with her friendly greetings. When it came my turn to meet her, she took my hand in both of hers and welcomed me warmly. As I was about to step away, she said, "Honey, I just have to tell you I love your hat." "Where did you get it?" I didn't have the heart to tell the Vice President's wife that I got it at Kmart at a Blue Light Special. Anyway, the luncheon was lovely, and when it ended, Mrs. Bush came to my table with flowers from her table. She gave them to me to put in my hotel room to brighten the duration of my stay. I thanked her and said, "Mrs. Bush, you are certainly being kind to me, and I must tell you in all fairness, I'm a Democrat." She just smiled and said, "Honey, I have many friends who are Democrats." I treasure this experience. The gracious Mrs. Bush will always be one of my favorite people.
Aww.
And then this is a picture of the hat. That's me.
Because you dropped
Will you
all
pass
that
it? Will you pass it
around
around?
his house. Yeah.